Hey guys, it's Neil Bergman here from Parallel Coaching and
Hayley.
Good morning guys. You've probably joined in to join us for our live A&P revision webinar. So we're currently streaming to you guys on YouTube or Google+. We've got Periscope down here, we've got Facebook over this side, and we've got a number of people joining us. So hold out for a couple of minutes and then we will jump straight into your questions for live anatomy and physiology questions. So let's hold out for a couple of minutes, and if you've got any extra questions you would like to add in, fire them into the comments box below in the Google+, Facebook, Twitter or Periscope, and we go from there. How are we doing, Hayley?
Good. Good morning.
Fantastic. So we've got a couple of people joining us now. Just drop into the comments box. I see a few people joining us on Facebook. We're going straight into Facebook. Let us know how you're doing today. I can see that Steve, you've joined us.
Hi, Steve.
Welcome, Steve. We will get going in literally a couple of minutes. We'll wait for a few more people to join us and we will go from there. So some of the questions that have been sent in to us are around the Valsalva effect. We're looking at spinal posture, some joint actions. We're talking about some Latin names in muscles, so we're going to go a bit sciencey, which is good. Nervous system, and really looking at how we can make our revision in this kind of Christmas limbo time as effective as possible and give you as many hints and tips to get you moving into the new year. So let us know in the comments box below when your exam is. So if you're in Facebook or you're on Twitter or you're watching from Google+, let us know when your exam is. And we know a few of you, of course, because you're on our PT course. We know that your exams are the 8th and 9th of January. I should know that. Maybe the Christmas mince pies are getting to my head. Welcome, guys. We've got a few more people joining us. Huge warm welcome. Let us know in the comments box below when your exam is, whether it's level 2 or level 3. So maybe you're here for your gym course, your personal trainer course. We've got a few people joining us because they're taking their exercise to music course with another provider, where they're looking to get that extra bit of revision in Christmas limbo. Maybe you're here because you're on your kids course as well, and you've got your anatomy physiology exam fast approaching. So let us know in the comments box, guys, when your exam is, and we will get going in literally 2 or 3 minutes time. And any further questions that you might have. How are we doing today, people? So we've got a few coming in. Let's have a look. Steve, you're definitely joining us. Hello, Mr. Steve Howlston. Whilst we wait for the final few people to join us, I've just posted on my Facebook page, Neil Bergman, so my personal Facebook page, but I'm hanging out on a live A&P webinar. Go and check it out, click like and comment underneath and let everybody else know that you are also doing the work whilst everyone else is drinking eggnog. Everyone else is chilling and you are different. You're doing the work because you want exceptional results in 2016. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Do the work.
We're here to do the work. So Steve has posted, his exam is on the 8th of January and you're with us, Steve. I can't wait to start hanging out and chilling with you again in the new year.
David is with us.
David is with us. David, let us know when your exam is. I know when it is. And we're going to get going in literally 2 minutes. We've got a few more people joining us. We've got a few people trying to log in. They've messaged us. So I'm going to hold out because I don't want them to miss these awesome Level 2, level 3, anatomy, physiology questions. Here we go, over on Facebook. We've got a few people commenting.
If you have any questions in particular, pop them in the comments already and we'll certainly cover them.
Hello, Emma.
Emma.
Mark, you're on your level 3 resit. Hello, Mark. Mace, you can put a face, name to a face or face to the name, whichever way around it is, Mark. So great to have you on board today. So keep posting any questions either in the student zone. If you're not in the student zone, the link is on the Google Plus page. If you're on Facebook, go and check me out. Friend me, Neil Bergman. Comment underneath the post. And let's tell the world that you're doing the work this Christmas and you're pushing hard. Mark, 12th of January. You've got plenty of time. Phil Plant. Phil, you're with us as well. Hello, Phil.
And Emma. Nice.
David, why? You're cheeky there, Mr. Edie. We're getting some cheeky comments come through. Morning, Phil. Morning, everybody. Okay, guys, let's kick start. Let's go straight into the first question, which is all about the Valsalva effect. And I believe this came from Steve. So if you've got any further questions, Steve, just shout. I'm going to pass this over to Hayley. In fact, I'm just going to present and I'm going to do the fun stuff because Hayley's fun stuff is all about the A and P.
Love it.
Hayley's the voice behind the Revision Mastery series, our online learning platform. So might as well pass it over to the expert. Over to you.
Okay, Valsalva maneuver and Valsalva effect. This is all based around blood pressure. So this will appear in your heart section of your mock questions and of your exam in general. So it will appear in the heart section and under blood pressure as well. So the Valsalva maneuver increases blood pressure. The reason why that happens is because basically it's an isometric contraction, and you've probably seen it in other things that you've read as well, that any kind of isometric contraction, that's when you're holding something still, increases your blood pressure automatically. The reason why a Valsalva effect does it double that amount of any other isometric contraction, and actually can be quite dangerous for people with high blood pressure to do, is because it's an isometric contraction of your diaphragm. So that's going to really increase blood pressure even more than if it's, say, of your bicep. Does that make sense? Can
I jump in? What is an isometric contraction? Simple level 2 question.
Contraction of the muscle without it changing length. So iso meaning same, metric meaning length. Stays the same length throughout. So like isometrically contract your bicep for me now.
They are there. So an isometric meaning that the muscle length doesn't change.
No, stays the same. So you're static.
You're static. So what Hayley is saying is that your diaphragm isometrically contracts. So your diaphragm is contracted but isn't moving. Consequently, you build up this internal pressure in the midsection, which is going to have a physiological effect around the body, the main one being that blood pressure goes up. But the biggest benefit, I would say, is that during training, if I was to follow a Valsalva effect, I'm going to add some midsection stability, for example, on a squat.
On a very heavy last rep, push through, it can really add some stability. But it can be really dangerous because it absolutely engulfs your blood pressure, massively increases it. So, as an example of what it is, can I do that?
Yeah, okay. Over to you.
So when you're breathing in and out, obviously air flows in and out through your nose or your mouth. What I want you to do is take a breath in, and then as if you're going to breathe out, but don't actually let any air come out. And you kind of get this kind of static feeling, and that's your isometric contraction in your diaphragm. That's your Valsalva effect. Don't hold it for too long. If you've held it, breathe.
Remember to breathe. It's very important in this world. Good teaching point, maybe. What would that look like in an exam, though? The key part here is you've got to think about the question. So at the moment they mention Valsalva effect on your exam, whether it be level 2 or level 3, go inside and think, you know, what do I know about the Valsalva effect? It's an isometric contraction. Blood pressure is going to increase. It's crucial for some postural stability. And then you can look at the possible answers, and they're always going to be multiple choice, A, B, C, and D, and you can then figure it out from there. Most people struggle when it comes to their exam around reading the question, and actually that's one of the questions we have very shortly.
But with Valsalva, if you see that word, basically it's filed under blood pressure, i.e. it's increasing blood pressure, and that's kind of in relation to the heart and circulatory system. That's the section it will probably be in. So yeah, the file that you access that in is blood pressure.
Fantastic. So I'm going to put a tick next to Valsalva effect. If you have any more questions, ask Hayley. Just drop them in the comments box below. I can see another question come in about planes of movement. We will definitely cover planes of movement because it's pretty tricky, to be honest, to go through. And there's a very specific question around not just planes of movement, but joint actions as well, that typically comes up in exams. So if you've got any questions on Valsalva effect, drop them in the comments box. Outside of that, we're going to move on to spinal posture.
Oh, nice.
So quite simple, this one again, but it's usually those simple questions that catch us out, and there's some easy marks to pick up. So over to you again, Hayley.
Thanks. So spinal posture, generally they're going to talk about two in particular. They might also talk about, so I'll talk about all three as much as I can. Kyphosis, lordosis, and usually they stick in their scoliosis as well. They're going to focus mostly for level 3 on kyphosis and lordosis, because they are a reaction of the world that we live in terms of posture and tight and weak muscles. So generally in your exam, it will talk about that spinal posture in relation to tight and weak muscles. So it's about thinking about, sometimes it will ask you about what exercises will benefit someone that has that posture. So let's talk about the posture itself, what that actually looks like, which one's which, so you have a kind of understanding of what they actually look like. Then in relation to what muscles are tight and weak, you may know this already, and then from there what exercises would benefit. What I have to say here is this is a massive read the question, because it's about reading whether they're asking you to say which exercises will benefit or which ones would be worse for. So make sure you really read the question. I think that's in everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that on all of these? Read the question.
Read the question.
Okay.
Read the question and read the question. You'll be amazed, guys. We go on about it a lot, but you will be amazed at how many people walk out of the exam confident on certain questions, and when they question themselves after the exam with friends and their learning peers, whatever we call them, mates in the same exam room, they walk out and they realize that they didn't read the question right. So it's super simple.
I'm not so good as drawing as Neil is, so apologies.
I'm going to apologise on behalf of Hayley as well.
Neil does the drawings. You should be here. Okay, so hopefully you can see even from this one, this is kyphosis. So this is someone in a kyphotic state, which means they're curving in their upper thoracic spine. So it's a curvature in their thoracic spine forward. So it's like they're flexing their spine forwards. Why does this happen, Neil?
It would be mainly due to the environment that we live in. Somebody that works at a desk 8 hours a day, that commutes in a car a lot, maybe mums that push buggies, any position where I'm hunched over and my shoulders are protracted forwards, over time the environment is going to lead me towards a kyphotic posture. So to reiterate what Hayley was saying, was that hunchback where you're leaning forwards, and you can see here this person's got exceptionally long legs, so apologies on Hayley's part, but really what we're saying here is that the upper back is rounded off. In fact, I had a client a number of years ago that would walk into the session and was almost looking at the floor where their back was so kind of rounded, and his job, he'd spent something like 40 odd years as a labourer on a building site, so constantly looking down, and over time the environment has, for a better word, changed the position of his spine, because that's where the tight and weak muscles are pulling him into that position. So that's kyphosis.
Yeah. And the muscles that are tight on kyphosis, we're talking about,
yeah.
Chest. If you think about it, it's pulling forwards, it's bringing the shoulders forwards, the chest is tight. The other muscles that are generally tight are at the top here, which is your upper traps, because in that position, you've then got to carry the weight of your head. And if you think your weight is, what, 7 pounds? Is that kind of the weight of it? Then it's got to carry all of that weight via your upper traps. So that will be so your upper traps will also be tight. That means that the weak areas are the opposites, which is your neck flexors, and also in between here on your mid traps. So really the two that they talk about most from an exam point of view is it's talking about that they've got a tight chest and a weak back. So to remedy someone that has kyphosis, so say for Neil's client that he had that was basically curved right over looking at the floor, he needs to work so much more on engaging the traps at the back, so trapezius, rhomboids, really engaging at the back to make sure that he can increase that posture. And he might have to work on stretching out the pecs a lot more as well. Make sense?
Sure does. I don't think my head's it weighs 7 pounds, to be honest. I need to do a bit more reading before.
I was waiting for a joke about it. I thought it was going to be money.
Well,
pounds.
People are joking about your drawings on some of his Facebook comments, so
don't joke too heavy.
What can we say? What can we say?
I never claim I can draw.
So the next one is lordosis, and
this we won't
go with the drawing. I hope you're enjoying this, guys. Remember, click like, make more comments, and let's somebody get a screenshot.
No.
Somebody get a screenshot of the drawings so this can haunt Hayley. I'm expecting Johnny or Sam, maybe David. Go on, guys. It's got to be done.
No.
I'm waiting.
Okay, lordosis affects the lumbar spine, so think L for lumbar. That'll help massively. So it's around the kind of waist area. It's underneath the ribs to where your pelvis is. All of that is your lumbar. So as a result of that lumbar, it's basically extending, so it's hyperextended. What's worth me saying here is that sometimes this is called hyperlordosis. It just means that naturally we have a little curve, but someone that's got a hyperlordotic curve has a slightly bigger curve than the normal little curve that we have. So usually we have a nice kind of shape to our lumbar, which has a little curve to it. When that's exaggerated, it's classed as hyperlordosis. So if you see hyper, it doesn't mean it's any different. It's just that what we're talking about here.
It's exaggerated.
Yeah.
In the classroom on PT, you know, I talk about this as kind of being Donald Duck bum, because this person is going to walk around effectively sticking their bum out. And next time you go into town, you'll probably see people, they waddle, they're sticking their bum out. This is effectively a lordotic lumbar curve, where tight and weak muscles are pulling on the pelvis, and it appears that they're sticking their bum out. It's effectively what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely. The tight muscles on this one, by the way, Sam, I have just seen that screenshot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. And Emma. I see you've got it as well.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, so from a lordosis point of view, your tight muscles are the muscles here in your back, your lower back. So it's partly your erector spinae. Erector spinae, sort of giggling, goes either side of your spine the whole way down. But it's also your quadratus lumborum. This is basically a big fan-shaped muscle, literally, that's in your lumbar spine. So you've got, basically, just call it lower back muscles, get really tight. And the opposite to those is going to be your core and abdominal muscles, which get weak because they're stretched out in that hyperextended position. So your core and your abdominal muscles kind of get weak and inactivated. The other muscles that are tight in this generally come down to your hip flexors, always going to be tight. And then the opposite to those is that your glutes are going to be weak. So the two tight muscles, lower back, which you could say are erector spinae, or quadratus lumborum, and then hip flexors. They are tight ones. Weak ones are glutes and core.
Fantastic. So next one is scoliosis, and scoliosis again. I think we should just start with joints again, but we won't.
This is a view from the back.
This is a view from the back. So that's square just here in the hips, and we're looking behind. So if you just draw a line down the middle, you'd give him butt cheeks.
Oh, here.
There we go. So we're looking from the back of the person, and you can see that this is slightly different to a kyphotic or a lordotic curve. We're seeing a scoliotic curve.
And it's either an S shape or a C shape in the spine. Now, all of these can fix permanently for the spine, so that the spine is actually moved, in which case all the postural work in the world probably won't help them because it's fixed in that place. That's more likely to be the case with scoliosis, because it's in a place whereby it's not just a case of changing and stretching out the tight muscles and working on the weak muscles. It's actually set in this curved place. So this will vary per person. It'll depend on which area of their body they're curved at. But generally, the area that they're curved towards is the tight area, and then the area that they're pulling away from is the weak area. This is why, generally speaking, in your exam, there aren't many questions on scoliosis, because it's so determined on the actual person. Whereas actually kyphosis and lordosis are really clear. These are tight, these are weak, this is what you need to do. So that's why in an exam it will mostly relate to these two.
Fantastic. So spinal postures. Any questions, just shout. We've got a few more questions come in.
Permission to get rid of these drawings.
Permission to get rid of the drawings, 100%. We've had somebody ask about thoracolumbar fascia.
Ooh.
We will definitely answer that for you. You've just joined the student zone, so a very big welcome. I'll tag you into another post because there's loads of extra freebies in there for you as well. So very, very warm welcome for those that have just joined the student zone. Federica, big warm welcome. And I'm not sure of the name, but Dark Crusader 157.
I think that's Nick.
Is that Nick?
Hi, Nick.
Hello. You've asked, when do I start my revision? I'll answer that one towards the end. Now, we've started today. That's the crucial thing. So we've got a few more questions coming in. Again, keep them coming. Next one I want to move on to joint actions.
Okay.
So I can't remember off the top of my head who asked this. I think it was over a Facebook direct message. Somebody was asking about joint actions. This is a real short one. And
it's in relation to eccentric and concentric movements. So some of you may have found in your mock questions, I think that's where the direct message came from. In a mock question, it had basically a message saying, when your hip flexor concentrically contracts, what's the joint action? So have a think about that now, actually, whilst you're here watching. When your hip flexor, so iliopsoas, concentrically contracts, what is the joint action? So is it, Neil?
So I'm not gonna answer that one. I'm not gonna give it away. I'm gonna ask you guys. Maybe you're on Google Plus or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. What is the answer? I'm gonna give you a minute or two to answer that one. Let's go over the question again. When your
hip flexor concentrically contracts, what is the joint action?
What is the joint action? Okay. Who cares if you get it right or gets it wrong? This is practice.
Yeah.
If we didn't practice, we wouldn't be perfect. So this is the time to get things wrong. This is the time to fuck up. This is the time to, who cares? The crucial thing is that we practice, we practice, we practice, so that when we hit the exam, we know the answer. So who's gonna throw it out there first? You can direct message me as well if you don't want to put it in the student zone or underneath the post.
How long are we going to give them?
We're going to give them another minute. The question, guys, is when I concentrically contract my hip flexor, what joint action takes place? Come on, who's going to be there first? We need countdown music.
The answer's in the name.
The answer is in the name. Oddly, so many questions that you'll come across will have that. The answer is in the question. So I'm going to refresh a couple of these pages. Who's going to get there? Come on, guys. So I'm going to give you, Hayley's going to give you the answer.
Now?
Now, go for it.
Okay, when you concentrically contract your hip flexor, you will get flexion at the hip. Make sense? So hip flexion. That's when you're in the concentric phase because that muscle is getting shorter. So it's contracting and getting shorter. Remember when we said about isometric contractions? They contract, but they don't change length. With these, concentric and eccentric, they change length. But the concentric...
Mark, well done.
Hey, well done, Mark.
Keep it coming, Mark.
With the concentric, it's shortening. So as your iliopsoas is shortening, the joint action is hip flexion or flexion at the hip. Does that make sense? So if they'd asked for what is the eccentric... No, let me get this right. What is the action at the hip?
When the hip flexor eccentrically contracts, the answer would have been
hip extension.
Hip extension.
Because it's now lengthening as it goes back. So as your hip flexor, your muscle, this is confusing now, isn't it? As your iliopsoas eccentrically contracts, it's going to get longer. So as it gets longer, it must be hip extension.
Well done, Nicholas. Well done, Phil. Yeah. Well done, Mark. And well done, Federica.
Perfect.
Perfect. You've got this in the bag.
Okay. The other thing about concentric and eccentric, if it helps, to remember the difference between the two. Remember, C is coiling up. It's getting shorter. C for coil up.
C for coil. I like that.
E for elongate. It's getting longer. Eccentric. I made that off the top of my head. Is that cool?
It works a treat.
Cool.
So let's just recap that. We're going quite quickly.
Sorry.
Concentric is coil, which means it's shortening, and eccentric means elongate, which means it's lengthening. So when a muscle lengthens, picture what happens at that particular joint. Remember, one of the rules of muscles is it must cross at least one joint. So if a muscle crosses a joint and it coils or elongates, what happens at that joint?
Nice.
It's pulling. If the joint is here in the middle and there's one bone and there's another bone, the muscle is pulling it over together. So I hope no one got that as a picture because that would have looked a bit strange.
Yeah, and the other thing that I started to write on here is the difference on concentric and eccentric is that a concentric contraction is usually when the weight is lifting up to the clouds, and eccentric is when the weight is going down to the earth. Of that same muscle.
So that's pretty cool. So you've got concentric, C for coil, C for clouds, eccentric, E for elongate, and E for earth. I like it. So joint actions. Next up,
is that done?
Muscle. I can't read your writing, Hayley.
Oh, you read it?
Latin names. This was a question. This is why I can't read it. Maybe Hayley wrote it in Latin. Sam asked, how do you remember some of the Latin names? So I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. So first of all, in an exam, the question is going to ask you for very specifically about a muscle or a group of muscles. And if I mention, for example, the back muscles, in the possible A, B, C, and D answers, you're going to recognize the group of back muscles because they're going to write something like the latissimus dorsi, the erector spinae, the rhomboids. So you're going to immediately recognize these based on what you've already read. You don't need to memorize them.
Nice.
Over time, as a FITPRO, as a personal trainer, these are just going to be able to, fall out of your mouth because you're going to know them because it's repetition. Repetition is the mother of all skill. So the more you say them, the quicker you learn them. The other side of it is the question might actually ask, for example, in level 2, it might say, where is the latissimus dorsi? And you go, well, I know what the lats are. It's a lat pull down, it's the lat, it's big back muscle. And then you would go through the possible A, B, C, D answers to find the arrow or the sign towards the back, for example. So I wouldn't stress too much over the names or the Latin names of them.
You don't need to be able to pronounce them, and you don't need to be able to spell them. All you're going to do is recognize what that means to you. So latissimus, oh, that's here. That's all you need to be able to recognize.
So I remember when I started well over 10, 11, 12 years ago, I wasn't a very instinctive learner. Maybe that's you. You know, I had to read something 2, 3, 4 times, and I'd say to Hayley, I still don't get it. That was me as a learner. So I made a point of trying to find all the possible ways in which I could learn best. So I used to, you know, write on Post-it notes and literally, I'd write pectorals and stick that to my chest. And I'd make it as fun as possible. Really silly things to find all the different ways in which I could learn. I'd get friends and family to quiz me. I would go online, I would try and download the mock questions, and at the end of this I'm going to give you 101 mock questions so you can practice if you've not already got them. The ways in which you learn are all different for everybody, so you really need to try to tap into that and make it as fun and as varied as possible. But one thing I remember was Hayley saying to me, don't stress over trying to pronounce these Latin names because they don't really mean anything. And if I can honestly, touch wood, today I've never had to really educate a client as such on Latin names. They're coming to me with a very specific training goal, health fitness goal. If they should ask about that name further, over time I managed to, through repetition, to be able to answer that. So really don't worry for your exam. Did I waffle?
No, you didn't waffle, that's fine. I like the Post-it note thing. I can see a few of you doing that. I can imagine you doing that, Phil.
Okay, so
no, that was Sam's question actually, wasn't it? Latin names. So yeah, in relation to Latin names, don't worry, essentially. You just need to be able to recognize that string of words and relate it to something that you do know in your body. That's it.
So I'm gonna jump to Federica's question because it works.
What does that say? I can't read your writing.
It's in Latin. It's in Latin, and it was, how do you remember origin and insertion? That's a good question.
One.
Good questions get good responses. How do you remember the origin and insertion? So as a general rule of thumb, origins are always closer to where in the body, Hayley?
The midline or the heart.
The midline or the heart. So if I know, shall I do the drawing?
Oh,
okay, that's good. We can see that. Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah. The origins are always closest to the midline or the heart. So if I am asked a question, for example, where is the origin of my gastrocnemius?
Oh, that's not a gastrocnemius.
I need to think, well, where is my gastrocnemius? I know that's my gastroc. I'm used to running. I know that's in my lower leg. So I know that the origin is going to be closer towards the heart. So I know that that is going to be somewhere around the knee. And I know that it's going to insert somewhere around the ankle. And then I would look at the possible A, B, C, D answers. And purely on that information alone, we will be able to figure out where which answer it is based on origin and insertion. Now, every muscle must cross at least one joint. Some muscles cross 2 joints. So if we stick with the gastroc, we know that it assists around the knee and the ankle. So we know that the origin is above the knee because it helps flex and extend the knee. So we know that that's going to be on the femur. And we know that the insertion has to be crossing a joint at the ankle. So we know that's going to be the heel, the calcaneus. So through real kind of our own multiple choice, we can figure that out. So let's take the bicep, for example. We know that the origin is going to be closest towards the heart. So it has to be around the shoulder, and it crosses the shoulder. So it must originate around the scapula. And we know that it helps in a bicep curl. So we know that the elbow is involved. So we know that it must go and cross the elbow joint. And therefore the insertion is going to be the other side of the elbow on.
Oh, on the radius or on.
There we go. So
the radius.
I hope that helps, Federica. I probably have made it sound way too simple, and sometimes learners go, well, it can't be that simple.
Certainly for the big muscles, keep it really simple. Like Neil just said, for bicep and for gastro, those type of big muscles. The only ones it gets more complex is anything that involves anything around the, it's not a massage, around the shoulder girdle, because there's just more things for it to connect to. But if you can have a good look at a picture and just feel where that is on you, then it'll help you recall that in the exam as well. So I kind of hope that helps layer on what Neil said as well.
One thing I still do to make sure I get this is when I'm making dinner most nights, I will test myself. So I will ask, if I move my hip, what muscle moves? I think, well, my hip flexor. Well, where is the origin of my hip flexor? It's closest to my heart. Where would that be? I think, well, where would it insert? What does it do? If I don't know the answer, I immediately try and find that through a book or through Google. So I'm constantly trying to test myself, even when I haven't set aside specific revision time or learning time.
Yeah.
I know this isn't for everybody, but it seriously helps. So I don't need to set half an hour a day to revise. I can literally do that whenever I like. I was walking through town yesterday, actually, and there was a person moving really awkwardly. So it was clear that they were in a lordotic position. And I was thinking, well, what muscles were tight? What muscles were weak? And I was testing myself just walking through town. Again, I could pick those muscles and go, well, what would be the origin? What would be the insertion? If I don't know the answer, I can just jot that down on a scrap piece of paper or text it into my phone and send a message to myself. And then when I get home, I can find the answer if I need to. So don't feel like you have to set specific revision time aside for that.
Especially if you like to move, like you're all FITPROS, so you must be enjoying movement, fitness. When you're in the gym, think about what your muscles are doing. Where does that attach? I mean, all that time during a rest in between your sets, you can think about actually what is it that I am working. That'll help massively, I promise. Massively. Nice tip, Neil.
Well, Federica said it helps, so I'm very pleased. If you have any questions, Federica, even after this, just shout. That's what we're here for. Next question. Nervous system. We've got about 4 or 5 more questions. I appreciate your time today, guys. I love it, the fact you've logged on and you're pushing hard in this Christmas limbo time. This is recorded as well, so you can re-watch it. It'll go straight into YouTube, and I'm going to write a blog. Immediately after this, and I'm going to make it live today, and I'm going to email you this afternoon. That blog will hit your email around about 4 o'clock, so keep your eyes open with with this recording and video. I'll break down the timings. So Federica, you might go, I need to watch that again. I just need that one bit of information. I'll put the timings in the blog so you can fast track to certain bits as well. How does that sound? Next question then. Nervous system. Real simple, this one.
This again was a direct message from, I can't remember the name, sorry. But yeah, direct message about nervous system. So it's about breaking down which, like what's happening in the nervous system in general. When is it central nervous system? When is it peripheral nervous system? And how to get sensory and motor the right way around, really. To be honest, I have to say, this is all about reading that question. I even read this question out to Neil today when we were preparing for this. I read out a question and he just went, I don't know what they meant.
I didn't know what they meant.
You've got to chunk that question down so you can pull it out of the right file in your head. Else it's just going to be like a sort of pin and tail on donkey. You need to know what you're doing. You can't go in blind. So this is what helps me decide the difference between whether it is a sensory or a motor, and what it is that they're looking at. So we have obviously our central nervous system down through the middle. That consists of our spinal cord and our brain. Then everything else is our peripheral nervous system. So that peripheral nervous system consists of sensory neurons and motor neurons. Sensory neurons take information from a sensory receptive, so a receptor of some sort, and then takes it to the CNS, and then a motor takes it from the CNS to the muscle, i.e. motor movement, to make it move. So, for example, Neil puts his hand on a hot flame. The signal literally goes from that sense all the way to the spinal cord. That then says, make a movement. Then his muscle, he sends a signal to all his muscles via his motor to make him move it out of the way. Easy. As long as you can take those questions that sound a little bit confusing, really think about the way around they've worded it. What are they asking for? Come back to this, break it down simply, and you'll find your answer.
I'm going to layer one more thing on, that this one would be afferent, and this one would be efferent. And the way I remember that is ACE. So,
oh, nice.
A-C-E. Afferent, central nervous system, efferent. So whenever something comes up about this, I just go back and think, I must know, I do know this. I know it in ACE. Afferent takes sensory messages to the central nervous system, and efferent messages take motor signals back to sort out the problem, for example. Nice. So I remember it via ACE.
Lovely. That one done?
That one's done. Now that's a big topic. I'm quite expecting people to ask more questions. If you didn't ask more questions, it wouldn't be normal. So please, after this or during this, just reach out to myself or Hayley. We're in the office all day working with you guys. It's a jam-packed day, actually.
It's a Monday limbo Christmas.
It's a Monday limbo Christmas. Everyone else is off work, chilling out.
Eating mince pies.
We're still eating mince pies. Next one is a brain dump focusing on wording and questions, and that works from what Hayley just taught you. And I want to give you this next acronym. Rebug. Now, I wrote a blog about this, and it's something that I've made up. And I'm going to send you that blog. In fact, I'm going to put it in the blog post that I write this afternoon, and I'll send you the links to it. But rebug is very, very simple. You must read the question. You must put everything in bold. You must underline keywords. Group everything together and go again. So read the question, put some of the keywords in bold, underline what they're asking of you, group anything together. So if you can see any trends, maybe they're asking you something about the central nervous system, so you group some of the keywords together. Because you own all this information from your revision, what this is allowing you to do, what Rebug is allowing you to do, is to pull out the correct bit of software that says, I know this. Yeah. And then go over it again, read the question, reread the question, make sure the stuff is in bold that you think are key to you getting this answer, this question right. Have you underlined the key parts to the question? Only once you've done rebug would I look at the possible, A, B, C, and D answers. Most people go straight to the answer. Most people read the question quickly, go straight to the answer, and they haven't read the question properly, and consequently they pick one where their brain goes, I think that's the case.
Like, for example, with the hip flexor thing, if it was actually asking about eccentric contraction and you've just gone, oh, hip flexor causes hip flexion and automatically done it, but not actually read that it's after eccentric and put that in bold or underlined it, so you go, ah, that's actually what it's after, then you don't know what the question's asking you and you can't answer it right.
Completely. So rebug, I do this on so many things day to day because it allows me to get clarity, and clarity is power. The more clear I am, the easier I can move forwards. So there is rebug, and that's kind of a brain dump or how to word the questions.
Yeah. On brain dump, what I will advise is if you've found any of this stuff useful and in your revision mastery bit as well, or any of the videos that you've had help with if you're in there, just take something that you can dump straight away on your bit of paper. As soon as your examiner or your tutor turns around and says, right, okay, go, time starts now, then take your scrap bit of paper that there'll be on the table and literally dump down anything that's occupying your mind. So anything that maybe you find hard to remember in mocks that you've done, or maybe it's the heart, or maybe it was about the CNS, central nervous system, whatever it is, dump it down on the paper straight away, clear your mind entirely, really get it clear so you can focus on what you need to focus on, knowing it's there to come back to.
Nice.
Big dump.
Nice. We won't go there. One thing I think is absolutely crucial from that, the big takeaway point is to write down very, very early on in your exam on that scrap bit of paper some key parts that you think you might forget. So that might be the acronym of rebug, that might be the ACE, that might be some key parts to origin and insertion. For example, Federica, you might just draw a line with a heart in the middle to remind you that origins are closest to the midline and the heart. So when that question appears, you know straight away you've got that in the forefront of your mind. Nice. So that is what the scrap piece of paper is for. Next couple of questions. Thoracolumbar fascia. I think that was Federica again. Guys,
do you want to draw this or shall I?
Hayley will draw. Just go over and whilst Hayley's drawing this, just go over to one of the posts on Facebook or in the student zone and just let us know what your takeaway message is so far. What's the one thing that you've learned today? If there's one takeaway message, what have you learned today? And then we move on to thoracolumbar fascia and planes of movement, and then we've got something else. I can't read my writing. What does that say?
No, that was this.
Oh, okay. That was that one. Yeah, ignore me.
Okay.
What's your, hold on, what's your number one takeaway, guys? Head over to Facebook, underneath my personal page or in the student zone. Phil, Steve, Mark, Federica, Emma, Sam, David Edie, what is your number one takeaway thing from today? And let's share so that we can get everybody else involved as well. Because Federica, your question or your finding might be different to somebody else. Yeah. So Mark said, write down information. So write down all of the information. Cheers. Thank you very much, Mark. Anyone else? What else have we learned today? So Mark's big takeaway has been to write down all the information early on, and that takes away panic, that takes away fear, that takes away any exam jitters or exam nerves. What else have we learned today, guys? Let's make sure we comment and share our knowledge. That's what we're doing.
I love all Mark's comments on there.
Love sharing the knowledge. We've got another person, refresh over here. We're streaming on like 4 different platforms right now. How kick-ass is that? So we've got Phil, how to draw.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. No, seriously, brain dump. David Edie, brain dump. Emma Hunt, brain dump. Yay! Fantastic. Nicholas, what about yourself, sir?
Oh, one more thing on brain dump. Plan it before you go in.
Yeah, plan
it now, what you want to practice, and when you go in, you literally just chuck it all down, and then you can crack on.
For me, it was always about heart and lungs. I know it so well now because I just did loads of brain dumps on all of it. So I used to write down. I've got the video actually. I wrote down it so many times that when I went in, I just went 2 minutes. I was like, boop, 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 and my heart and lungs was on the paper. Read the question. Read the question. Read the question, Sam.
Yes.
Perfect. Let's get one more. Let's see, Federica. Reading the question. Don't apologize, Phil. Don't apologize. Okay, I love the fact we got some interaction, guys. Next question then. Thoracolumbar fascia, otherwise known as an aponeurosis.
It is. I'm not going to write aponeurosis on the board. TLF or thoracolumbar fascia. This is this great big black bit here. If you can see this drawing, it's basically a person facing away from us. This is their back, this is their pelvis, shoulders. The thoracolumbar fascia is connective tissue. Fascia is connective tissue. And it basically is this sheet of connective tissue that goes right across the midsection of the back. So it goes across the lumbar and attaches to the thoracic. So it's thoracolumbar fascia. Neil's doing some strange lighting here. Is that better?
I'm just trying to get better lighting. I think that's a bit better. So
it don't look like us doing Halloween.
Completely.
So thoracolumbar fascia is this great big sheet of connective tissue that goes right across the middle of the back. Now that ties in with your glutes under this side, so it attaches down to your glutes here, and then also your lats on this side. So it's going from your lats and your glutes, which means that if these are differing in type and weak, i.e. they're not where they're supposed to be in terms of tensity, i.e. your glutes are weak and your lats are tight, this thoracolumbar fascia can't pull across and can't stay as rigid as it would do. Same for core, because these act like apron strings and they wrap the whole way round and they'll pull from your core. So if your core isn't engaged, your thoracolumbar fascia won't be tight. Were you going to add something?
No, so the key muscles here are your glutes, your latissimus dorsi, and your transverse abdominis. And when you contract your core, you squeeze your glutes, and you stand in a very good postural position. I call this the 5 pillars.
Yep.
If you've not heard of us talk about the 5 pillars, message me and I'll send you some bits. I'll put that on there as well, about 5 pillars to send you. It's ultimately where your ankles, knees, hips, shoulders and ears are all in good alignment. If all of that is in place, your thoracolumbar fascia acts as a corset and, for a better word, protects your lumbar spine.
Yes. Yeah, that would be its main function.
That's its main function.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a web-like material. It's connective tissue, it's fascia. So it's tough, and it's strong, but it's also very pliable. Is that all done?
So I think that's in the bag there.
Who was it who asked?
I think that was Federica. I'm just going to ask you, Hayley, just to step in the camera. We get like a half shot of you. There we go.
You don't want to see me.
We want the full body and screen. So next up is planes of movement. I think this was Mark. I think you asked, but I do know a couple of other people have asked for planes of movement as well.
Yeah.
So let's keep this super simple. In your manual, the guys, you're with us on the PT course at the moment. You're on Active IQ. Federica, Mark, David. There's a couple of others here, but I'm not sure what provider you're with, but you may be with a CYQ. Regardless, the planes of movement will be in the first kind of quarter of your manual.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate this. The 3 planes of movement, Hayley, are, let's just drop them down.
First off, let's go sagittal.
So just drop them down. So the first one is sagittal. The second one is frontal. And the third one is transverse. So sagittal divides the body along the midline, and we can do what type of movements?
Flexion and extension, things that are moving forwards through space.
Things that are moving forwards or backwards through space. So sagittal is always about forwards and backwards. So walking is a sagittal movement. Running is a sagittal movement. Anything that is flexion and extension is within a sagittal plane.
The way I remember this best is that the angle you see moving most, you see it best from the side. So if I do a bicep curl this way, where I'm flexing, you can't really see the angle of my joint. But if I do it this way, you see it from the side. Flexion, extension always looks great from the side. And S, side for sagittal. Do it from the side.
Wow, I've learned something today. That is cool.
Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
I knew it, but I didn't see it like that. S for side, sagittal. That's where you see the guns. Anyway, frontal. This is fun, eh, guys? This is fun. Where else would you rather be on a Monday morning in Christmas limbo than hanging out with two lunatics teaching A and P? How cool is this? So, frontal divides the body across the front. Clue is in the name. And the types of movement that occur here are adduction and abduction. Adduction is adding to the body, and abduction is the opposite, taken away from the body.
Yeah.
So any exercise or movement whereby you see abduction or adduction is within a frontal plane. So for example, a star jump, a very classic star jump, is a frontal exercise.
Yeah, and you see this from the front.
And you see it from the front.
Whew.
So transverse divides the body
Across
the
so like this way,
across the body, and you see rotation here. Okay, so anywhere where the body or a limb or a part of the body rotates, we're seeing this in a transverse plane of movement. Now, the big thing I want to highlight here is we very, very rarely just see one plane of movement. Even when somebody is running, they're going to have some rotation in the upper body, so they're going to have some transverse movement. When somebody is doing a kettlebell windmill, they're going through all three planes of movement. So we live and work in a triplanar, tri meaning three, and we live in a triplanar, sagittal, frontal, and transverse world. Me getting my washing out of a washing machine, getting into the car, going up and down stairs, lifting, washing, up and down off the toilet. Basic daily moves rely on all three planes. So our training must incorporate, in my opinion, all three planes of movement where possible. So planes of movement: sagittal from the side, flexion and extension, frontal from the front, adduction, abduction, transverse from the top is all about twisting.
Rotation and horizontal flexion extension as well.
T for twisting.
Yay! Or see it from the top. And that's like a pec fly would also be in transverse, because you see the movement from the top, and it's literally this horizontal flexion and extension. So that's why you see it from the top of the body.
Wicked. So, final couple of questions. Somebody asked, what books do you recommend? Wow. I'm going to ask Hayley to go and select my top 2 books.
Your top 2?
Or Hayley's top 2.
Just A and P.
A and P. So I'm going to ask for the strength one and a colouring in one.
Yeah, I've got.
Okay, so we're going to go and get the 2 books. I will put these books in the student zone. I'll put these books in the link below if you're following this on YouTube. I'll email you as well with all of the information so you can go out and get them. Now, At the end of the day, you have a A&P manual. So everything you need to know is in the A&P manual. These are the books that I like, which is Anatomy and Physiology Colouring In book.
This one's quite a serious one. I've not done much colouring in on this version.
It is classic colouring in.
But I noticed that one of the learners on this course had a much easier version of this, a little bit more appropriate to where you guys are. But you can get these, like, they're awesome. They're really good fun to, like, literally you just colour in as you go.
So if you like colouring in, it's a good way to relax and de-stress at the same time as learn. I'd suggest do that. I like this one as well, Strength Training Anatomy by Frederic Delavier. And again, what I really like about this is that the images show you the ins and outs to muscle origin insertion. They tell you what muscles are working. They give you the Latin names. They tell you some of the key teaching points. They give you some comments to look out for.
But they relate it to the actual exercise. So you relate to something you already know.
So you relate it to something you already know. Now, I'm always going to be biased, but the main thing I would say is that if you really have learned something from myself and Hayley today, because you've got basically us on your lap in your living room or at your kitchen table, or maybe if you're lazy and you're sitting up in bed still, you're learning whilst at home. That's my point. So I know some of you have the Revision Mastery Series online Revision Academy. You know, in there's 7 modules for
7 modules, yeah,
for level 3 and 8 modules for level 2. And basically every module, so let's go through them, things like heart and lungs, muscle actions, nervous system, endocrine system, energy systems, they're all labeled out, and you've got roughly 45 minutes to an hour on each. So if you really want to learn, and you've learned well from us, you know, having some kick-ass Christmas limbo content, then I would jump into the academy. Nice. Phenomenal resource to go from there. But those books do a great job.
Yep, they're good ones.
Do you guys have any more questions? We have smashed through some questions, and I'm loving it. Who else has posted? Bear with me a minute.
Hey, Sam, I like that book.
So, Sam, you've posted
Anatomy of Stretching. Oh, yeah, on that same, this one, Strength Training Anatomy, they do tons of different ones, not just strength-based. And you've obviously got the stretching version. Love that.
Very good. I like that a lot. One thing that I've noticed actually is 2 things I want to wrap up with. So if you've got any more questions, this is your time to post them, because I did say we'd be an hour, and we have reached the hour. So I'm gonna just go over a little bit. So I appreciate the fact you're here. So Mark, you're on Active IQ. The planes of movement. Apologies, I've just jumped there. A message came in. That'll be at the early stages of your manual.
Yep.
So whilst any more questions do come in, I got a couple of things to say. Never stop learning. Don't stop learning. I've been in this industry now for well over a decade, and I've already booked up my courses for next year. I'm on a course in March. February, and then late February, early March. Then I go on a next course in April. I'm already looking at my courses at the back end of next year. Why do I do that? I have a thirst for learning. Why do I do that? The more I learn, the more I earn. Sounds bloody cheesy, I know. But not just earn financially. I earn many things. Emotional kind of freedom. I earn the right to hold this knowledge. I earn my own kind of sanity because I hold that knowledge. So, you know, first of all, figure out what is it I'm after. Why do I want to revise, and what am I heading towards? What do I really want? And then you end up doing the work because you have a sheer love for it, as opposed to resenting or fighting the clock, trying to find 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. You naturally find yourself buried within a book. As an example, I got a number of books for Christmas, and somebody said to me yesterday, in fact, they said, how do you read so quickly? And I said, I don't read quickly, I just read a lot. I'm just always trying to find time to jump inside the book because I love learning. The more I put in my brain, the more I get out, and I'm rewarded for that later in the day, later in the week, the month, or the year, or beyond that. So never stop learning. And that's my big tip for understanding anatomy and physiology. Constantly try and find ways to better yourself. Constantly try and find ways to keep pushing your knowledge, even once you've passed. I quite regularly jump back in my level 2 and level 3 A&P books that I had over a decade ago. They're so out of date, but they remind me of some of the key things I was taught by some of my mentors that I'm still in contact with today. So never stop learning. That's a big point.
We've got one question on Google saying about when do you know when to start revising for your exam?
Yes.
How long does it take? Weeks, days, etc.
How long? When would I start revising? So I know that I've got an assessment in February. I've not been given my books. I've not had any resources yet from a company I'm going through. Have I started revising? Yes, I have. I've got a practical assessment, and on was it Boxing Day?
Yeah.
I was in the gym on Boxing Day practicing for about 20 minutes some of the practical that I've got to go through. So my point here is, when do I start revising? The moment you know you have to revise, start. The people that leave it to a last minute, in my opinion, some people do well, but those people that genuinely find the time to put the time in and do the work, they do very well.
I'd also say seek to understand, and if you see it as that you're seeking to understand rather than revising, it won't be centered around the exam, you'll just get it. So it'll be a case of whether you have your manuals, like you've not even got your books yet for what that assessment's going to be on, just seek to understand early, and then you can do that any way you wish as long as you understand.
Most people think that revising is a case of, I've now read the manual, I must go and revise. But the moment you start reading, that is revision. You are learning. Revision is just learning something you don't yet know. Simple. So if you're reading it for the first time, you are actually revising. So I think we use the word revising in a very strange way. So there's that answer. The next big exam tip, guys, and then if you've got any more questions, keep posting. But this is my big exam tip, and it's this: don't talk to anyone after your exam. Don't tell or talk to anyone after your exam about the exam. So if you were on about 2 courses ago in our Milton Keynes Academy on a gym course. It was a gym course, I think.
I think so. What you're about to say.
Everyone passed. That's what I want to highlight to start off with. But people walked out of the exam and they said, "What did you put for question 4?" And somebody went B, and they went, "Well, I put C," and somebody else went, "Well, I thought it was A." And these 3 or 4 people sat down so annoyed. They were trying to engineer a question, figure out what the answer was, but guess what, guys? They couldn't even recall the question, which meant for the rest of the day, or certainly the next couple of hours, they were going round and round and round, and their little chimp in their brain was going crazy. Have I failed? Have I passed? Oh my God, all these different questions. If I take the last course that we ran just a few weeks back, this hardly happened at all. And they walked out of the exam room. They asked a couple of questions, I'm not gonna lie, but they didn't dwell on it. They got on with the day. And I thought then, imagine just walking out of the exam and going, I'm not talking about the exam. Because what's done is done. If you've passed, you've passed. If you referred, you referred. You can't change that. But what you can change is the state that you're in for the remainder of that day. So if you're going to be on course for the rest of that day and you've still got to learn, it would make sense to get the most out of that practical session, the most out of your peers and the most out of the tutor. So walk out of the exam and just go, I did my best. I did the best version of me possible, and I'm not going to talk to anyone about it.
The same
Simple.
applies at the beginning of your exam as well. Like whenever you start walking into that exam room, don't do the whole outward, oh, I'm nervous, I'm scared kind of thing. You might feel that, but just accept that you've done everything you can. Either you know it now or you don't. And it's just a case of just clear your mind, which is why the brain don't work so well. Clear your mind and just be like, that's done. Let's do what I can and then be done with it. Don't panic, don't overwhelm it, and don't let the thoughts kind of run around in your head.
Completely.
Okay.
So there's my top 2 tips. Hayley's added the 3rd tip in there as well. Do you guys have any more questions?
I haven't seen any more
There's
questions.
no more questions. So we're going to start to wrap it up. Could you head over to either the Student Zone Facebook group or the post on my personal page, Neil Bergman, and just write down, let us know, what is the big thing? What is the number 1 thing you've taken from myself and Hayley and Team Parallel today? So head over, we'll give you a couple of minutes. What is the number 1 thing that you've learned today? So we've seen Mark, Phil, Emma, Sam, David, Steve, Federica. You've all commented. Please let us know. Please let me know what you've learned from us today.
And Nick on Google, make sure you comment in again. What you learned.
Nick, Dark Crusader 157. I'm loving that name. Hell yeah. So what have you learned today, guys? Let us know. And I really hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so keep it there. Keep it there. Let us know what you've learned. And then we'll just do one final recap before you go. So we've mentioned you're going to get the 101. Most of you have got 101 mock questions already. I'm going to write this up as a blog. I'm going to make sure there's lots of timings in there so you can go straight through this video again. I'm going to guide you towards 5 pillars. I'm going to guide you towards our rebug tip. And I'll put the ISBN numbers in and the links to Amazon for those books as well. So we've got a couple of people posting. Go to art school. Thank you, Mr. Edie. I wouldn't expect anything less, and I can't wait to jump back in the classroom in a few weeks' time. 2 weeks, in fact. Sarah, welcome, Sarah. Woo, Sarah, planes of movement, very helpful. Phil Plant, I've learned that I am on track and know more than I thought. Boom, bosh, as Mr. Johnny would say. Very, very cool. I'm liking that. So, Nicholas has said, Team Parallel, seek to understand. Nice. I like that. Nice. Great to have you on board, Nicholas. We've got Steve and Mark. So brain dump from Mark, read the questions and break them down. Lovely. Yeah. So, where are we going, guys? That's the question. You're going into 2016 with Anatomy and Physiology Level 2 and Level 3 on your cards.
Yeah.
Final post. And I really want you all to post. I want you to post in what percentage you want from your exam. It's out of 100% and you need 70% to pass. What percentage are you striving for in your exam? So just write underneath the post one final time, what percentage are you heading towards for your exam?
What percentage would you go for if you done it again, Neil?
If I did it again, I'll answer that question when you guys answer the question. So what percentage are you heading towards? Now, it would make sense to go for 100%. But we also know that that would be 100 out of 100. And we also know that maybe our stronger areas are elsewhere on the course.
No.
So if you're genuinely sitting there and thinking, I want to go for 80%, do you know what? That's good. That's 100% of your 80. That's how I frame it. It's 100% of your 80. So what percentage are you going for? Let's see what we're getting. 90%, Emma.
Yeah,
lovely.
Emma's on that 90.
Fantastic. Federica, you said revising at the moment during the day, how to remember origin insertion. Thank you very much for your time. No, thank you, guys. Thank you, Federica,
Nice to meet you,
for
Federica.
joining us and coming out to hang out in the student zone. You'll find that it's a nice hustle and bustle place. We post quite a bit. Phil, 100%. Nicholas, 80% plus. David Edie, 100% plus. Anybody else? What percentage are you heading towards?
David, like it.
I love it. Sam, what have we gone for? We have gone for 80%, 80% plus. Lovely. Bring it on. Guys, you're going into 2016. You now have your eyes fixed on the prize. Your brain now knows what it's going to go and hunt down for. So go and do the work. That's my final message. Any questions, you can reach out. You can direct message us. You can add comments under this blog and we'll always find it. Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. We post up there 3 times a week, loads of groovy stuff.
88%.
In reality, Phil equal to level 2, 88%. Fantastic. So make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like into our Facebook page. So facebook.com/parallel coaching. And overall, just reach out whenever you need us, guys. Just because you're perhaps with another training provider doesn't mean you can't join the parallel community. We've done a couple of these now over the Christmas period, and we are going to be doing a lot more of these coming into 2016. So one of my goals for 2016 is to make learning more accessible for you.
Nice.
That doesn't mean you have to travel to our Milton Keynes, our Yeovil or Swindon or Kent Academy. That means all you have to do is to travel to your kitchen table and log on to the internet. Okay, so that's one of my goals for you, well, for Parallel, and I hope very sincerely that you join us on that path. Okay, so I'm going to start to wrap up. If you have any more questions, I'm going to be online for the remainder of the afternoon. Just shout. Outside of that, guys, have an awesome end to 2016. I hope you had an awesome festive couple of days over Christmas and Boxing Day. Have a very relaxed week, revising, obviously. Don't get too drunk on New Year's Eve. And all the best for 2016, guys. Until then, take care. Love you guys. Bye-bye.